Chinese Academy of Sciences, China.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor for me to stand here and share with you my current achievements. I'm Guowei ZHONG, a PhD student at the Institute of Geographic Sciences and Natural Resources Research, supervised by Professor Fa Dongli. Today, I would like to share our 22-year continuous observation study on water use efficiency in a winter wheat and summer maize rotation system in the North China Plain. And this is the title.
어디에다 겨냥해야 되고 겨냥을 지금 손으로 했죠. 중국에는 제가 혼자 왔어. 중국은 제가 혼자 왔어.
둘 학생 둘 렉처러는 중국 지금 시진핑이 미리 사진 신고해서 한국으로 갔다 온다고 하더라.
Let's start with the background. As we all know, global temperatures are gradually rising, and extreme weather like droughts are becoming more common. This leads to several water shortages that threaten global food security. Our study focuses on the North China Plain. This region is a major grain base in China, using a winter wheat and summer maize double cropping system. It produces about half of the country's wheat and a quarter of its maize. Therefore, understanding the water carbon cycle here is critical. Meanwhile, the mechanisms underlying cross-seasonal trade-offs remain unclear. When we talk about saving water in agriculture, we use a metric called water use efficiency, or WE, but we must look at it from two different scales. Yield scales WE, which is green yield divided by ET, and ecosystem scale WE, which is plant carbon uptake divided by GDP divided by ET. Currently, we know that YWE is generally increasing. However, it remains unclear whether EWE is rising at the same time. Long-term evidence for cross-scale decoupling is leaky. Also, traditional linear methods often miss the hidden complex relationships between the environment and water use. To answer these questions, we conducted our research at the ZHONG station in Shandong province. ZHONG station is one of the international long-term ecological research stations. We used a comprehensive 22-season ID covariance record spanning from 2003 to 2024. Our framework combines this long-term flux data, yield records, and meteorological data. We use the train analysis to see the long-term changes of various partitioning to find the main drivers, and advanced machine learning, specifically XG both with SHARP, to uncover nonlinear relationships. Now, let's look at our key results. Over the 22 years, both wheat and maize showed consistent seasonal cycles in carbon and water fluxes. More importantly, the crop yield for both maize and wheat increased significantly. As a result, the YWE for both crops also showed a steady upward trend. But here is a surprise. When we look at the EWE, we see a clear divergence. The EWE of wheat continued to rise, while the EWE of maize gradually went down. This shows a clear decoupling between the two scales. So why did this happen? Our data shows that nighttime temperatures are rising much faster than daytime temperatures, a phenomenon called asymmetric warming. This warming, combined with the return of crop straw to the soil, increased ecosystem respiration. Simply put, the plants and the soil are breathing out more carbon at night, which cancel out the carbon they absorb during the day. Furthermore, farmers are breeding crops to push more carbon into green rather than the whole plant, which drives up yield efficiencies but leaves ecosystem efficiencies as stagnant or falling. To mechanistically explain why this happened, we theoretically decompose the YWE to EWE ratio. The YWE to EWE ratio can be decomposed into three components. Harvest index is HI, above ground carbon allocation, and ecosystem carbon use efficiency. This framework successfully solves the observed YWE to EWE decoupling from the dual perspectives of carbon allocation and respiratory loss. Next, we analyzed the water controls these changes. We found that the interaction among climate, soil, and management explains the largest part of the WE variation, about 22% to 24%. For maize, EWE is mostly driven by climate, while YWE is driven by soil. For wheat, soil is a dominant driver across both scales. Then we discovered a hidden cross-seasonal trade-off. Correlation between WE at the same scale and within the same crop. Only one significant relationship with EWE was significantly positively correlated with maize YWE. But when we controlled for soil moisture and biomass, this relationship flipped to a strong negative correlation. What does this mean? It proves that where the leftover nutrients from wheat are good for the maize. The heavy water use by wheat leaves the deep soil dry, causing drought stress for the maize later. Both positive nutrient legacy and negative drought stress coexist in the same system. Finally, we use using our machine learning model. We look at daily response to investigate the main controlling factors of daily EWE. We adopt both XG-BOSS and SHARP approaches. XG-BOSS was used to determine the primary drivers, whereas SHARP was applied to integrate the directional effects of individual predictors. SHARP analysis revealed that maize EWE was primarily regulated by RH, AP, and SM, whereas wheat WE was dominated by SM, ST, and AP. Moreover, the dominant drivers of ET and GBP differed markedly between the two crops. We found that environmental factors have clear nonlinear threshold effects. Most of the environmental factors exhibit significant nonlinear relationships with daily ET, GBP, and EWE. So to conclude, our 22-year study reveals four main points. First, there is a strong long-term divergence between yield scale and ecosystem scale WE, mainly due to carbon allocation and nighttime warming. Second, the main drivers of transition between climate and soil depend on the crop and the scale. Third, there is a hidden cross-seasonal trade-off where deep soil water depletion by water weed limited the summer maize that follows. Finally, at the daily scale, SG-BOSS SHARP reveals nonlinear threshold responses. Thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have any questions, you can ask me by email. I'm very happy to be able to communicate and make progress together in the future. Thank you.